Howdy. This is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, and today is Saturday, December 7th, 2024. And I wish you a very, very, very happy International Civil Aviation Day. Today's show is live and it is exclusively presented by College Basketball Analytics. You go to cbbanalytics.com right now, sign up for a free account, or of course, sign up for a paid account and get access to all the stats and analytics that several Division One college basketball programs have access to scout, self-scout, and game plan. Well, is it safe to say that Buckeye Nation overreacted just slightly after Ohio State's blowout loss to Maryland? Some would say no, others are just being quiet. They've went and hid back into their dumpster where that wet collapsed cardboard that they sleep under at night provides them all the solace that they could hope for at this time. Some people who root for Ohio State, I swear, would rather Ohio State just lose so that they can be miserable. That's not us. On today's show, we're going to cover the Ohio State Buckeyes win over Rutgers in rather dramatic fashion. The Buckeyes don't go wire to wire in this one, but they led for, I think, 36-ish minutes in the game. So we'll cover this game in its entirety. We'll talk about key stats and performers. Of course, we will give away a game ball. We'll recap some keys to the game that I gave in the preview show. And at the end, some major takeaways in this one. I do have to ask, if you're here, please like the video. If you're watching live, please like the video, get the video out to more people. If you're an Ohio State fan and you know one other Ohio State fan, please copy the link to this video, hit the share button, and send it to another Ohio State fan as well. And of course, like the video, comment your reaction to today's game as well. The real comments, not the ones that are on the right in the chat, like a real comment. Please do that. And make sure you're following on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed as well to the Views from the Shop podcast on YouTube. Okay. All that, one thing to address before we get going. So, the Views from the Shop podcast X account got into a minor feud with the Nut House X account last evening, and it carried over into today. Am I proud of it? Kind of. I've gotten many a DM from people who have never even followed the account yesterday saying, "Hey, you know what? You're kind of right." I've gotten other kind of hate comments underneath the various posts where I have been tagged, and that's fine too. It's free publicity, so I don't really care. And also, I don't really care what an Ohio State student section admin has to say about this show. Regardless, all I have to say is this. I want the same thing that all Ohio State fans want, and that's a great atmosphere at the Schott. I don't allow the schedule. I don't allow a poor opponent. I don't allow team performance to be an excuse for not being as loud as the Nut House once was. And at the same time, the Nut House is more concerned with being loud on Twitter than they are being loud at the Schott. All that to say, let's move on to covering today's game because that's what we do. So, some key stats and performers in the Buckeyes win in this one. And the Buckeyes, they score a fair amount of points. Reach 80, that's what they like to do. Ohio State wins this game 80-66 over. They cover. And the over does not cash. 80 plus 66 is 146. And that's why we only take banger bets and not leanings in this one. Devin Royal had a big game yet again. He said after the game, had he not been in foul trouble, well, maybe he would have scored even more. But it's the second time this season reaching his career high in scoring. He puts up 22 points. In this one, he was all over the place. He had 6 rebounds and 2 assists as well. And another uber efficient and productive day from the field, shooting it 9 of 12 in this one. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Ohio State associate head coach Joel Justice for the development of Devin Royal. He's been the one working with the forwards and the centers this season since he's come to Ohio State. I think you've got to give him a lot of credit because Devin Royal, the positioning in the post and the craftiness that he plays with this season compared to last season, the way he just seems to always be open down there in the post and can find a way to position his body the best way to receive the ball and go up and get a bucket. It's been very impressive to watch and very encouraging to watch if you're an Ohio State fan this season. He continues to be the best in the business when it comes to getting into the paint and then scoring. I don't know if he did a lot of work in the offseason with Zed Key, who's no longer at Ohio State, or if he just watched what Zed Key did while he was at Ohio State. But it's very, very clear that his ability that Zedke had has now been transferred over to Devin Royal now for the Buckeyes. He had 3 misses in this one. It felt like every time he missed a shot, he was getting his own rebound and cleaning up and making a shot as well. And he hit a 3 in this one as well. Devin Royal has not been a great three-point shooter in his time at Ohio State. He had a great start against Texas, and since then, dating back to last season, he has not been a productive three-point shooter for Ohio State. I believe that he shot 16% from deep last year. That's not going to get it done, and he hasn't shot that well this year. You go 1 of 2, and that second three-pointer was a bit of a heat check. He misses it. I don't care. Good to see him make a 3. If you can you don't have to shoot a 3 every game if you're Devin Royal, but you can go 1 for 2, and then 1 for 1, and then 0 for 1, and then 1 of 3, and then maybe an 0 for 3, something like that. If you're just simply sprinkling in a 3 or 2 every couple of games, that helps Ohio State. You have to go guard him. You don't have to guard Evan Mahaffey at the three-point line. You do have to guard Devin Royal at this point because he does show at least some ability to make shots at this point. Brody knows ball, says Ohio State 9-0 all-time versus Rutgers at home. Buckeyes will go for 10-0 potentially next year if Ohio State gets to play Rutgers at home. So the Buckeyes dominate Rutgers no matter what. Doesn't matter who's out there. They will beat Rutgers at home. Apparently, and not to be outdone was Bruce Thornton. 22 points in this one. He matches Devin Royal. Not a career high for Bruce Thornton, but an encouraging game for him as well. 3 assists, that's fine. 8 of 13 from the field. He didn't miss a free throw in this one, and he was 2 of 3 from deep. This was vintage Bruce Thornton. Bruce Thornton that we saw consistently as a freshman and then as a sophomore. He's making shots off the dribble in the short corner. He's getting into the paint. He's driving. He's making layups. He hits a couple of triples. It's just another day at the office for Bruce Thornton. He looked really, really good in this one, and I loved his aggressiveness. He hasn't been as aggressive this year, maybe because Jake Diebler has asked him to dial it back, maybe because there's so many other weapons on this team, but you saw him consistently trying to get into the paint, and he would draw a lot of attention, so you got guys open. He had a couple hockey assists in this one where he finds an open player, and that open player, another open player for a made shot. So a really good game out of Bruce Thornton as well. Royal with 22 points, Thornton with 22 points as well. Some other key stats: Ohio State goes 55% from the field. And a lot of times, when you go into games with Ohio State, you wonder which team are you going to get? Are you going to be the team that is shooting off the charts in a good way, or a team like against Maryland that's shooting off the charts in a really, really poor way? They go 32 of 58. Of those 32 made shots, 14 of them off of assists, and they continually gashed Rutgers down low in the paint. They found open look after open look in this one, and it allowed Ohio State to shoot really, really well from the field. On the other hand, Rutgers, 42% from the field. So Ohio State, 13 percentage points better from the field than Rutgers. It's hard to lose a game when you shoot that well. Rutgers, 42% from the field in this one, and they've been 42% from the field season long to this point. So Rutgers did what Rutgers does, and Ohio said, that's fine. Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, 2 players we talked about a lot in the preview show. They were extremely quiet. Actually, they weren't really quiet. They were just bad. They couldn't hit shots in the first half. Both of them warmed up a little bit in the second, but Ohio State actually, I think they outpaced Rutgers. They won the second half at a larger margin than they did in the first. No, I lied. They didn't. They actually only won by 6 in the second half. The first, they won by 8. So close enough. But regardless, Ace Bailey and Harper, they play a little bit better in the second half. It just wasn't enough. The Buckeyes continued to control the game for most of it. This was your classic stiff arm game for Ohio State, where you lead for most of the game. The lead doesn't feel all that fragile. It's as if you have a fragile item that is wrapped in paper towel and then another towel. Like, it could break. There's a potential for that. But as long as you're not doing anything stupid, you're gonna be fine. That's how it felt in this one, where Ohio State just played its game, kinda went to work, and it was business as usual, I should say, and it was a fun win for Ohio State for the most part, and no one else stepped up for Rutgers. That was a question I had going into this one. You know Ace Bailey, you know Dylan Harper, they're gonna get their shots up, and they're probably gonna score some points. Who's gonna step up? On the previous show, we looked at Jeremiah Williams, and he had 2 points in this one. He had scored a fair amount of points in the past 3 games. Not in this one, only 2 points. No one else really stepped up for Rutgers, and that led to Ohio State winning this game pretty handily. And then 2 other major stats: points off turnovers. So Ohio State turned the ball over 10 times in this game. That's fine. You don't hate that all that much. Rutgers had 13 turnovers. Sure, that's a little bit high, but for the most part, both teams took care of the ball. There were some spurts, some stretches where things didn't look that great in this one. But the difference here was the fact that Ohio State scored off of turnovers where Rutgers could not. Rutgers had 3 more turnovers than Ohio State. Ohio State had 18 full points off of turnovers in this win. 22 points off of turnovers for Ohio State, 4 for Rutgers. And we talked about this again. We talked about it in the preview episode. Rutgers is a team that forces a lot of turnovers, they'll block a lot of shots, and they score a lot of points off of turnovers. That can be a huge momentum swing because it's a +2 net gain, net difference when you force a turnover because you're giving yourself another possession and you're taking a possession away from your opposition. So Ohio State taking advantage in scoring points off of turnovers, not allowing Rutgers to score off of turnovers in this one. We saw a couple times where Micah Parrish would lose a ball or a ball's dribbled out of bounds or something like that. Buckeyes give the ball away to Rutgers, but Rutgers just couldn't take advantage. They couldn't score. And the last major stat in this one, 8 points. We saw it from minute 1 to minute 40. Ohio State continued to score in the paint in this one. They continue to find open looks. Ohio State had 46 points in the paint. Rutgers had 18 paint points in this one. Those 2 numbers, points off turnovers and paint points, that is what decided this game. It is so much easier to win a game. It is so much easier to get distance from an opponent when you can continue to get quality looks near the basket. That's what Ohio State did. That's where you saw Devin Royal. That's where you saw Bruce Thornton. And those 2 stats, while I came into it saying Ohio State needs to make 3-pointers because they're a better 3-point shooting team, and because Rutgers is not a good 3-point shooting team, that didn't matter in this one. I think Rutgers actually, I believe, made 1 more 3-pointer than Ohio State in this one. Let me check. Yeah, Rutgers made 7. Ohio State made 6. At the end of the day, what mattered in this one was 8 points and points off of turnovers, and that's how Ohio State won this game. Appreciate you watching. If you're here, please like the video. Please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and drop a comment, not in the chat, a real live comment. Tell me your reaction from today's game as well. Okay, or you can drop a comment in the chat. Just do both, I guess. Let's get into recapping the keys to the game. So coming into this game, I really, really liked how Ohio State matched up with Rutgers. I know a lot of fans were really concerned about this game, looking at it as if Ohio State had a lot of pressure, a ton of pounds on its back for this one. And maybe that's how the locker room saw it. That's not really what I heard internally. They really liked where the team was pacing in practices up to this game, and there wasn't really any issues with leadership or anything like that. The matchup there was good. I liked it coming into it, and Ohio State not just wins, but they cover the two keys to the game that I thought they would have to accomplish in order to win this. Let's get those now. Number one, needed Ohio State to take and make the three. The Buckeyes coming into this game were, I think, the number 6 3-point shooting team in the nation. No one, virtually no one, shooting the 3-point ball better than Ohio State. You saw it in wins against Texas. You saw it in wins against Evansville and Campbell, even. I think they shot well in those ones. And then you saw losses against Maryland, against Texas A&M, Ohio State not making the threes. This was a game where Ohio State could get ahead and get an advantage if they shot the three ball well, because Rutgers was only a 31.7% three-point shooting team this season, I believe, was their number. Did Ohio State do that in this one? Not really. They did take them. They shot 18 three-pointers in this one. That's a little under their season average, I believe. They were 33%, making 6 of them. Michi Johnson, we're going to talk about him in a bit. I've seen a lot of people talking about Michi throughout this game and over the past couple of games for Ohio State. He was 0 of 6 in this one. He got a couple of really, really good looks, just couldn't get them to go down. Micah Parrish, he took them as well. He was just 2 of 6. That's fine. That's not special. You'd like the 3 of 6, and that makes you look a lot better and makes you feel a lot better. But Micah Parrish, 2 of 6. He was okay. Bruce Thornton was your best shooter today by far. He was 2 of 3 in this one, but he only took 3 triples. So maybe if you go 4-6, if you double that, can you guarantee that he keeps that pace throughout this game? No, you can't. But Bruce Thornton was your best three-point shooter. He's only 2 of 3. John Mobley Jr., his first really true down game of the season. He didn't show up here in this one. It's the first time. So as a whole, the team did not really shoot that great. They took some, they didn't shoot as many. I think number one, simply because of how many open looks Ohio State got in the paint, the three-point shooting is going to be volatile. It's going to be different. It's going to vary from game to game every season for Ohio State. I just would have liked to see them take more, but at the same time, I completely understand why they didn't, because they got so many good looks at the rim. So, first key to the game, Ohio State didn't really do, but it didn't really matter. The second key to the game was over help on Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. I said this in the preview as well. I'm not an X's and O's expert. That's not what you get from the show. You get a lot of other things. You don't get me talking a lot about X's and O's strategy behind basketball, because I'm not paid to do that. So I don't do it. But I wanted to see Ohio State really pay a lot of attention to Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, because Rutgers hasn't shown they have really any support outside of that. It was Jeremiah Williams over the past 3 games, and that was it this season. So in this one, from 20 minutes left to go in the first half, so the start of the game down to like 30 seconds left in the first half, you saw Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey take a few shots and not make any. Both had 2 points. Dylan Harper made a layup off a very ugly final 60 seconds of the first half. It was frustrating because a lot of this game, it felt like Ohio State had control, and they just couldn't quite pull away until very late in this one. It felt like they were leading by 10, 15 points, and you look up and it's like, how is Rutgers still in this game? How are they only trailing by 6? They got some shots to fall, and that's what kept them in it. But for the entirety of the first half, Dylan Harper scores 4 points. Ace Bailey scores 2 points. I don't remember what they combined for from the field in the first half. I tweeted it at the time, but it wasn't good. So Ohio State, you saw the intensity in the first half and in the second half, guarding both of these players, kind of knowing that if you can take these 2 out of the game, then it could be well within your reach to win this game and win it kind of handily. That's what happened. You even heard Stephen Bardo, my least favorite color commentator. Sorry, I'm not a fan of him. You even heard him say it, though. Credit to him. At the end of the first half, they're freshmen. They could be getting frustrated. They could feel uncomfortable. And that's what we saw through the first 20 minutes. And that's what I said in the preview episode. As freshmen, can you get them uncomfortable? Can you get them to start forcing up shots? In the second half, they did shoot a little better. Dylan Harper, he finished with 18 points. He was 6 of 13 from the field. That's great. You'll take that. He was 3 of 7 from deep. So a solid performance out of him. On the other hand, Ace Bailey, he finishes with 12 points. He's 6 of 16 from the field. Not all that efficient. But again, these 2 players had combined for, I think, 31 field goal attempts on average per game. They were at 29 in this one, so not that much different. but both players held under their season average in scoring. You felt the pressure every single time they got the ball. A couple times, the ball hits the deck, players hit the deck whenever someone would dribble in the paint, and overall, I think Ohio State did a great job defending these 2 players, and that's part of how they won this game. All right, we gotta give away a game ball because Ohio State has won, and then we'll do some major takeaways. I've got 3 of them. I need a sip of water first. Brand new water bottle. Shout out the wife. Birthday present. Alrighty. So, game ball. There's 2 obvious players that this could go to. One is Devin Royal, 2 is Bruce Thornton. I think most people talking a little bit more about Devin Royal, I think because you're just so used to Bruce Thornton at this point. My game ball, the views from the shot game ball, will go to Bruce Thornton in this one. 22 points, 3 assists, 8 of 13 from the field. He didn't miss a free throw, going 4 of 4, and he goes 2 of 3 from deep. This was, like I said previously, this was vintage Bruce Thornton in this one. It was a light day distributing the ball. You're used to seeing him go out there and have 6, 7, 8 assists. He's averaging exactly 6.0 assists per game coming into this one. Just 3. But what I care about and why I give him the game ball over Devin Royal is because of the aggressiveness. That's what matters to me. That's what we've been waiting to see consistently from Bruce Thornton this entire season, and you just hadn't seen it, you hadn't felt it yet until this one. He pushed the ball. He got the ball into the paint. He would take some layups. Sometimes he would miss. He was 8 of 13 from the field, so that's really good. It's not necessarily excellent, but it is good. And you'll take that, and a lot of it comes from him just driving to the rim, driving to the cup, finding open men when he was guarded hard. You saw 3 shots in the first half alone from the short corner where he dribbles, dribbles, dribbles. He's like, all right, I guess I'll take it if you're going to give it to me. And he pulls up and he hits it from, I don't know, 15-ish feet out. So Bruce Thornton playing the Bruce Thornton game that I've wanted to see. First couple games this year, he's let the ball come to him. He's let open shots come to him, and this one he took open shots. He made them his own. Would like to see more of that from Bruce Thornton, especially with the pressure that is on Ohio State, without Aaron Bradshaw, without Quez Glover, without Colin White, with a thin front court. Austin Parks played well today, I guess. I mean, he wasn't necessarily excellent, but he had a couple of rebounds, a couple offensive rebounds, made a couple layups, cleaning up down there in the post. I think that was an encouraging game from him for sure. And there's more pressure on Bruce Thornton because of how thin this team is. So all in all, really impressed with Bruce Thornton. Devin Royal obviously had an excellent game as well. I give Bruce Thornton the game ball. Alrighty, major takeaways, and then we head out of here. Buckeyes have a huge game against Auburn. We'll cover that coming up next week. So make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching live on YouTube, again, please like the video. Would appreciate that a bunch. It is the season of giving, of course. And throw down a comment. Let me know what is your reaction to today's game, and make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Thank you again for being here live with me. If you are, I appreciate it. Alrighty. Major takeaways. So number one, I'm sorry. I need a bit of a victory lap. Okay, I do. Like I come out here and I cover every single game for Ohio State basketball, which means I have to have opinions, I have to say things, and I have to back it up. You can go out and you can say whatever you want on Twitter, and you can delete a tweet should you choose to do so. You can be a little bit less noisy when Ohio State wins if you hate Jake Diebler, if you think this team sucks. And I got a little bit of backlash. Some people even DMing me more so than anything and saying, "Hey, I listened to the show. I'm still afraid about Ohio State basketball. I didn't bring you. They're there. It's okay, buddy." And look, Ohio State played really, really well in this one. It was a great matchup. As I said the preview episode, this was a perfect matchup for Ohio State to get right, get back on track. It wasn't a must win. A lot of people would argue that it was. It wasn't a must win. I defined that in the preview episode. I talked about why it wasn't a must win. I'm not going to rehash that now. Locker room, there's no issues. There's no issues with leaving. Nothing like that right now. A lot of people are saying that. Look, I feel like it needs to be said. Ohio State played really well. They crushed a pretty good Rutgers team, a team that could go to the NCAA tournament for sure. We'll see what they do, but they won. They won at home. They got their first Big Ten win under their belt. I said after the Maryland game, it wasn't good. It was bad. We shouldn't be excited about it. But let's just pump the brakes on saying the season is over. Now, on the flip side, that means that I don't necessarily get to say that we're right on track to go to the NCAA tournament if we're Ohio State just because they beat Rutgers at home, because Ohio State is still not there yet. But I feel like, again, it needs to be said Ohio State won this game. They won it handily, and it's okay to simply say that, yeah, Ohio State looked good in a game. Now, will fans overreact if Ohio State loses to Auburn next week on Saturday? Yeah, they probably will. But um, we'll get to that when we get there. All right. Good win for Ohio State. We're happy about that. Buckeye Nation, relax a little bit. Number two, on the flip side, I'm not sure how many games Ohio State is going to win against Big Ten teams that have real centers. The good thing is that they can beat teams like Rutgers that maybe want to run up and down the floor a little bit more. And that, I don't know, maybe don't play that traditional center and feed the post like a team like Purdue has in the past couple years, and Michigan State, of course, has, and teams like that. Wisconsin with Stephen Crawl, those classic Big Ten 7-foot centers. I'm not sure how many games Ohio State is going to have on the schedule here on out in the Big Ten against teams like Rutgers, but we do know at this point the type of matchup Ohio State needs is against teams that don't have strong front courts. You don't have Aaron Bradshaw. I don't know if Aaron Bradshaw is ever going to play again for Ohio State at this point. He might, he may not. It's just a fact that we all have to probably be okay with at this point. We have to come to grips with it. Aaron Bradshaw may never play for Ohio State again. But the fact that you see Ohio State beating teams with bad front courts and doing what they should have been doing all along as we came into this season, we knew they would have a strong backcourt. And in this one, you see Devin Royal playing well. You see Sean Stewart playing pretty well as well. We haven't mentioned him yet. When Ohio State plays against teams that don't have strong front courts, they play well. Texas, we talked about that. Not the best front court, lacking some depth. Texas A&M, they're a very good front court. And we saw what happened in those games. Now Ohio State gets a chance against Rutgers. Not a great front court, not really strong, not the traditional Big Ten type of front court, and you win a game. They got a test against Janai Broome, I think is how you pronounce his last name, at Auburn next week. That's going to be a real test. We'll see what happens. In that one, this is a good matchup for Ohio State. They won. We'll see what happens. Michi Johnson, the player we need to talk about as well. I haven't had a chance, so I just saved this for the end to talk about Michi Johnson. So he's had 8 points, 9 points, and 4 points now today in his last 3 games. You know, the 3 games prior to that, though, he had 13 points, 12 points, and 17 points. So at this point, we need to wonder what type of Michi Johnson are we going to get for the rest of the season? Me personally, I think you're seeing it right before your eyes. Some games he's going to have 17 points. The next game he'll have 3 points. Then he'll go out and he'll have 14. Then he'll have 7. Then he'll have 22. Then he'll have 2. That is the type of player Michi Johnson is at this point. That's what we saw against South Carolina. We saw Michi Johnson driving the rim and scoring and making a lot of threes. But he needed a lot of shots to do that. He's never been an efficient scorer in college basketball at South Carolina or at Ohio State. He's needed the volume. So that means you're going to have a lot of volatility when it comes to Michi Johnson. And you can see in this one, he was anxious. Micah Parrish had a 2-on-1 fast break opportunity. I think it was Micah Parrish. And you saw Michi Johnson. He said, give me the lob. Michi Johnson wanted to finish an alley-oop. Maybe he would have laid it in. Maybe he would have dunked it. I don't know. But he wanted the ball in his hands. That three-pointer at the end that he airballed, Michi Johnson is best. He's absolutely best. He's one of the best in the Big Ten, if not the nation, going downhill, driving, using his speed, his quick first step, and his ability to be slippery at the rim and make layups and finish. That's where Michi Johnson is best. You didn't see him do that a lot in this one. He took 6 3-pointers. It's just not the type of game you necessarily want from Michi Johnson. Yeah, he made 5 against Campbell, maybe, or Green Bay. I think it was Green Bay where he made 5. I think in the first half alone. That's not what you're going to get a lot of times from Michi Johnson. He's going to take a lot of shots, which means he's going to miss some shots. He's going to make some shots, but you're going to see him scoring a lot of points in one game and not a lot of points the next game. That is who Meechie Johnson Jr. is at this point for Ohio State. So if you're frustrated, I guess most fans are just going to be mad and pissed over Meechie Johnson. Me personally, I'm just going to be okay with this is the type of player he is. Some games he's going to play really well. Other games he's not going to play that well. You're going to see him go 7 of 11 from the field one game and then 2 of 11 the next game. That's the type of player that he is. You can see he's anxious. He wants to get his touches. He wanted to score in this one. He just didn't have the opportunities to do so. I'm not concerned. Slumps are going to happen. Good games are going to happen. That's the type of player that Meechie Johnson is, and that's what you have to be okay with now with him at Ohio State. If you're a true Ohio State basketball fan, which I think if you're listening to the show, you are. There's a lot of people who want to get noisy on Twitter when Ohio State loses and say, "Hey, I told you so." And then when Ohio State wins, the fire Jake Diebler tweets decide. I mean, they're gone. They go to sleep. Apparently, I don't know what happens, but it is what it is. All right, Buckeyes pick up a big. This is a huge win for Ohio State. Not that it was a must win, but I think to kind of bring the fan base back in at this point because it was going wild. It was running rampant, thinking that the world was going to burn down. It's okay. Ohio State picks up a win. It was a feel good win for Ohio State. Now you have an entire week to prepare for an Auburn team that I think is the number one team in the nation. I know they lost earlier this week. I get that. I think Auburn is the best team in the nation, and it is close. There's some other good teams, but I think all in all, overall, Auburn is the best team that you're looking at most likely in college basketball. So that's going to be a big game for Ohio State. Auburn has got wins this year over Houston, over Iowa State, over North Carolina. Is North Carolina good? I don't know. Not my place to say. They've got a win over Memphis as well. They stopped Memphis when they were really, really hot, and they just lost to Duke. Auburn is going to play Richmond tomorrow on Sunday at noon. You can watch that game on SEC Network. So Ohio State's going to have an extra day of rest and an extra day to prep for a really, really good Auburn team. Next week, we are going to review the game. As always, we'll be ready for Ohio State to take on Auburn, and then we'll recap the game as well. Good win for the Buckeyes today. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching or listening to today's show. Buckeyes picked up a a rather stress-free win on a Saturday. Enjoy watching college football if you're into that. I'll see you next week. And until then, I'm going to shut up before you shut me off and go Bucks.